let's get started.
Okay.
Folks, first off, let us know if you can hear us all right. And we're going to start off with the most important thing, which is sugaring you up. So,
You know that lunch here, kind of drags us down. So
yeah.
use some sugar in your blood.
Yep.
Kind of help.
I
Yeah, well, hopefully we can help you out with it.
Yeah. Well, welcome to our session. Mac OS 10 networking techniques, or as Stan will tell you.
Or stupid cups tricks.
Yes. And our guest, all the way from Towson, Maryland, on the show today is an HP 4050.
4050.
Had a previous life in printing labels. But before we get started, a word from our lawyers about stupid cups tricks. Remember, this is not a competition. It's only an exhibition. No wagering, please.
About stupid Mac admin tricks, remember, this is an exhibition. It's not an exhibition, it's a competition. Wagering is encouraged. So,
the bookmakers are at the back. Before we get started, quick quiz. I know the internet's a little bit iffy in here, so we might just do a show of hands. But who invented the printer? Was it Bill Hewlett and David Packard, Gutenberg, Babbage, Thomas Edison, Tesla, or unknown? He did not.
Press.
Yeah. Okay, show of hands. Hewlett and Packard. Gutenberg. Babbage. Okay. Edison. Tesla. Unknown. Okay. How many we got? Unknown is the right answer, actually. And whoever gets to the front first gets themselves a nice big Hershey bar. Anyone?
Sure.
We're in Pennsylvania, right? First printing process of any kind of printing first took place in the year 200 BC, somewhere in China. So the goals of this session, I'll let Stan talk about the goals of the session.
So, goals of the session, we're going to talk a little bit about ourselves, tell you where we're from. Also, we're going to just do a brief overview of printing, computer-based printing, cups, Mac OS X printers, how Mac OS X prints, how to set up a printer, how to print. There's more than one way to print from Mac OS X. Also, how Mac OS X prints on a network. May it be Open Directory, Active Directory, or if you just assign an IP address to a printer. Also, how to optimize, customize printing, and some troubleshooting, and then we'll just go over some top 10 things that we love and hate about cups.
Yes.
So a little bit about ourselves. Recently,
you're from Goucher. So.
I'm from Goucher. We both used to be from Goucher College. When we did this presentation, we were both. Eric took a position at Towson University in Towson, Maryland, but
Tag lies.
But Goucher College is a small liberal arts college in northern Baltimore. Basically, we have a small campus. Heavily, I would say the population of Mac and Windows is about half and half. So we have to keep things pretty consistent.
And I'm an alum. And I come from Towson University, which is sort of it's a state university. It's a little down the street from Goucher. And we have a significantly larger population of undergraduates and graduates, one of which, of course, is Stanley. Mm-hmm. And you can learn more at the URL. But it's and I'd say the Mac, there is less Mac population integration over at Towson. They're still getting into that. But lots of iPads. So a little history of printing. I'll do the professorial part of this. A little history of printing. Who invented the printing is not known. It was around 200 BC. Gutenberg, which we talked about already, is considered to be sort of the father of modern printing. He developed his printing press with movable type was developed around 1450. They were reusable characters. He didn't invent it. It was actually invented around 1040. but a lot of folks credit the Gutenberg Bible, which a lot of you have heard of, as being sort of the gateway into sort of the information age, bringing that holy text to the masses, eventually in the languages they knew, and it spawned. There's some good scholarship out there about how Gutenberg basically brought literacy to the Western world. Babbage is said to have invented the first computer printer when he designed the analytical engine. Regrettably for the oatmeal, Nikola Tesla was not involved, at least directly. Though that printer does run on alternating current, so, First modern computers, first high-speed printer was developed by Remington Rand for use with the UNIVAC, which is a computer about the size of this building, if I recollect. First laser printer was the ears developed at Xerox PARC. Folks, if you know your history, know that something else interesting was developed at Xerox PARC. The mouse and the Mac OS. Well, was licensed out. But by 1985, we see the laser writer, which in combination with PageMaker sort of begins the desktop publishing revolution. By 1998, we see the first inkjet released by Hewlett-Packard, and Hewlett-Packard also starts off with the affordable and very popular LaserJet 4 by 1994. Anyone remember this? LP01 Fire? Never heard of this? Very early Unix printers they had a sensor to tell you that the printer had some kind of error condition. And some of it could be like, that something had heated up and caught fire. But they didn't have as many sophisticated sensors. So the error message written into some of the early, like System 5 was LP0 printer on fire, which hopefully would have encouraged the user or the system administrator to go check out their printer, even if it was just jammed. But don't let it happen to you.
All right, so we're going to do an overview of printing and computer-based printing. Basically, printing is a process of outputting 2D data created on a computer to paper. Most important in the past, early computers often only outputted the printouts. There's really no GUI or graphical interface. Early personal computers weren't networked, so you either depended on like SneakerNet. Basically, I hand a big 5.5 disk over to Eric so he can take a look at my data, or just make a printout, or I would make a backup. Or some cases, printouts were considered a backup. But now there are many other ways of looking at data on a computer. Of course, you have the monitor, different multimedia, CDs, DVDs, and then also mobile devices, and also this crazy thing called the internet. So still more important, or at least popular, but just a quick note. From the whole academic school year at Goucher, we print about 2,545,499 pages, and we have about 6,141 users between faculty, staff, and students. So that's about 415 pages per user, or paperback version of Hamlet 4 times over, 5,091 reams of paper, and we cut down about 27 trees.
And I was concerned about the environment?
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. So what is CUPS? CUPS stands for Common Unix Printing System. Its goal was to become a centralized printing system that focused on printing and not the technical details of printing. Was based on LTP, but has since been moved over to IPP, Internet Printer Protocol. Michael's suite of easy software products started developing CUPS in 1997, and it was designed to provide Unix users the kind of constant printing that was found on both Mac and Mac OS and Windows. In March 2002, Apple Incorporated adopted CUPS as its printing system in the Mac OS X systems. In 2007, they hired Michael and actually purchased the CUPS source code from him. And then by Mac OS X 10.2, it fully adopted CUPS as its printing system.
And sort of ironic that, it starts off to be modeled after Mac OS printing and then becomes Mac OS printing. So we're going to talk about how Macs print. And let's talk about perception versus reality. This is generally how Apple would like to tell you that a system prints. The application prints, magic happens, stuff prints. Stanley, show us the reality.
This is the reality.
I'm not even going to try. Except for to let you know that obviously there is a lot, the big old box at the top, or the little box versus the big box at the top, a lot of layers of different libraries and processes happen in the middle. Cups generally works the way it's advertised. Now we are going to look a little bit at some of Cups internals. The ones that I think that you might find yourself touching or looking around is if you go to etc Cups, which that's a hidden file, so you'd have to go look at it on a Mac. You'd have to do the go to menu and go to folder. And then there's in etc Cups. How many folks have kind of fooled around with the hidden folders on their Mac? Okay, good. Okay, pretty cool. Good. And living in there is there's etc Cups, SMT conf, cupsd conf, default, SMT conf, printers, and then there are 3 folders: the PPD, the interfaces, and the certs. By no means is this all of Cups, but this is kind of all of Cups that an admin would typically play with. And I'll explain the good ones and the ones you really don't need to touch. So the interesting ones are printers.conf. Printers.conf file defines local printers that are available. Very useful configuration file. If anything, it's really just kind of what printers you've mapped into your system. You can read them out in fairly English-like way. Cups conf, that configures Cups. Again, a very useful Cups file. Next one. The smt.conf is something that is all but empty in Mac OS X. It's in more advanced setups it might be important, but largely these ones listed here you largely can just leave you'd probably find yourself leaving alone. Default, that's like nothing. Most of these are just to be left alone. The one that's really to be left alone is the search directory, because that's on the fly, that builds certs, kills certs, helps with security and passing around packets. You don't want to mess with it. But it is in that user space.
All right, some abilities and limits of Cups. Works more or less as advertised.
Magic does happen.
It's more or less a standard complement. It's extendable and programmable. It has 3 popular interfaces, the GUI, web, command line, and it could be integrated in other print systems. Again, it has its limits. It only has 3 interfaces, web, command line.
That's a plus and a minus. You could say it's the 3 popular interfaces is 2 interfaces too many, or just too few.
Right, and the degree it can be integrated with other systems, and it also just lacks some features that other print systems have. But we'll get into that a little later as we get into Cups. So we're going to look at how to set up a printer on Mac OS X.
Okay.
So, all right. So we're going to do a quick demo.
Right.
We're kind of building up as basics and then kind of get into some intermediate stuff just to help some people out because we don't know everyone's level of expertise. So, all right.
Let's exit that. So this is one of our tests. We have a test client. Just to talk about our environment briefly, we've got a test client for you to work with, a test Mac server, a test Windows server, and of course our special guest, the printer. But using Cups from a client is really, you're in the wrong. Oh, here.
Okay. It's beach ball.
Beach balls, always excellent. Yes!
All right, there we go.
So this is our fun test client, which Stan will kind of talk through and I'll walk through.
All right. Yes.
Are we off script? Probably.
All right, so give me a second. All right, so we're going to go ahead and set up a printer. So we're going to go into System Preferences, and we're going to Print and Scan, and then we're just going to hit the plus sign. And we're just going to do, for now, IP printing. Because we have an HP printer, we're just going to use the HP JetDirect. And then the IP address that we've set for this printer is 10.67.1.11. Then from there, you can change the name to wherever you wanted to make it. Location, that'll help you out for your, your users who might say, hey, call the help desk, my printer is broken. Well, what location is the printer in? If you fill that out for them, that'll help them out. Then next, you set up the drivers. Latest versions of Mac OS X, a lot of times with HP that I've seen, it'll actually ping the printer and actually install the drivers for you. Only problems I've seen is with our Sharp copiers where it has a harder time of installing the drivers. I have to do it by default.
But you can search it out and just find it if it doesn't auto.
And once you click Add, it'll give you, sometimes it'll automatically pop up or not, but you can hit Configure and then you can configure your printer if it has any types of finishing such as duplexing, extra paper trays, like if we had it, 2 more trays for like tray 3 and 4, you can set it up. Then from there to test it out, you just double click on the printer itself. Go over to printer and then select print test page just to test out just to make sure that you're actually connected to the printer.
It's a miracle.
All right. So another way of setting this up, you can actually go through cups through the web interface. The first demo we did was actually through the GUI. So does anyone know how to get the cups through the web interface?
Localhost 631.
All righty. All right. Also,
We should mention
by default, this is disabled. So you have
10701.
It's disabled. So you have to go into terminal and actually have to turn it on. And to turn it on, do you have it?
I don't, but I think we got it on the slide.
Basically, it's just, I'll bring up the slide again to show you, but you can also add it from the web interface. So. So I'll get rid of this guy.
So we go to administration, we add printer, we're going to have to put in our TST. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do socket. Very bottom next one. So this is how we add this from socket, and then we're going to do, yeah, that's the exact thing, except we're putting that. So we put in this field here, the IP address. We'll hit continue. And then we can add sort of our names. Now in this we can't use unique characters, so we have to use like an underscore. That I think still can have. And here we can, similarly to the way it's been that we saw sort of in the Aqua GUI, we can pick it. It might be here a while. A little long. And we add the printer.
And then again, with the options, you can just select, as you will with the GUI, when it pops up for configure. And I'll just set the default options. And then I'm going to do a test print.
Now you can't print from, this is the only thing you can print from the CUPS web interface. Okay. exciting pictures of the cups test page. We are going to start printing slightly more interesting things later. But now if you go back to the GUI stand, you'll show that the printer is there. There it is.
So we've added it through the cups interface. And another way to print is through command line using LP command and the source of a file. So just going to bring over Eric's dog.
Yep. And you just hit. Now this is interesting. You're using the LP command and then the path to your file. Did you put in that? Mm-hmm. The only thing that's kind of different about this is sending it almost directly. This is kind of bypassing cups. So it's going to spool the whole thing to the printer now. And so we're going to be waiting a little bit. And then...
No, it didn't do it.
What? Oh, no default. Oh, you got to set a default.
Oh.
Because what the command line does is it takes what you've set as your default printer and tells you what our request ID is. Now, if we actually watch the printer here, probably not a lot of folks can see, but it is actually processing a job. This is fun if you like to play around with shell scripts, login scripts. Fun, you can just send people stuff, print jobs out, just for giggles. We don't really know what the practical upshot of this is, but still. And there's my dog. Well, I need to walk on it.
And again, what we were saying before with newer versions of Mac OS X for cups, you actually have to go on the terminal and enter the cups STL web interface equals yes command, and it'll enable the web interface for you.
If you put it up with it out, it'll tell you that.
Yeah, absolutely.
On the top of the page.
Right. So you can actually add, we can add printers from the command line. I'm not going to do it now because this is a mouthful, but you can add this if you add this from the command line, which I'll kind of pull you, instead of doing like a live demo of this, I'm just going to kind of pull you through the switches a little bit. But it's LPadmin minus P, and then you put your printer queue name minus E minus capital E minus lowercase v, and then you put in your LPD, your IP address, and then you put in minus P, and then your path to your PPDs, and then you can put in minus D, which will give you that human readable sort of description tag. What all this means is minus P is the printer, minus E enables the printer, turns it on. Minus V sets what the URI of the printer is. Minus P specifies the PPD location. Are folks familiar with PPDs per description file? More or less? Yes, no? Okay. Sort of tells it's the printer's sort of base configuration. Minus D adds a description. Now, if you also were to follow this with the slash lowercase d, and the printer name in quotes, that would make the printer the default printer. That was the little problem we had there when trying to print from the command line, is we hadn't set a default printer. Honestly, you don't want to watch me try to type this into a terminal. We'll be here a long time. So, any questions about this? Because we're kind of going to gloss over it a little bit. The nice thing about this is it can be scripted. Like this is, because it's in the shell, it could be scripted. How to print.
We've basically kind of done this already, so we're going to just skip through it. Again, we did the test print through the web interface. You showed how to print through the GUI, and then I also did the demo of with the LP printing.
Yes.
If you have a printing problem in the GUI, can you go into cups and print via cups?
No. What version of? You mean the web admin?
Yeah, because I know, like with that printer, you can't. If you put in the IP address of the web, it's going to say your job is outdated. And
right.
Windows only.
Right. You cannot print from the web admin. You could print from the control panel. I mean, not the control panel, from the command line. Now you're talking about adding the driver, Apple adding the driver, or
He's more so saying someone's printed, something's stuck.
Right. Can you go into cups? Because what we would also have happen too is printer would pause.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, you can manipulate jobs once they're in there, but you cannot send them. Like I cannot go to the web admin and upload a file and say, please print this.
Yeah.
But you can go in and manipulate the spool. We've done that. Actually, we're ahead of ourselves.
Yep.
Now, how Mac OS 10 prints to networks? I'm going to preface this just a little bit. We've been printing to a network right now. I mean, we've given an IP. We've taken a printer, we've printed to an IP address. But what we mean by a network printer is more of an enterprise, like a server-client environment. Yeah. Because also, we could have done a lot of what we just did if we had had the printer directly connected by USB or serial or, those.
Yeah. We don't want to print with serial. If you are, get rid of that printer.
No, of course not. We could have done a direct connected kind of scenario.
Actually got rid of a printer. Yeah, SCSI. Definitely SCSI. That's another one.
Firewire on a rare occasion.
Yep.
How do you print to? How does Mac OS 10 print to networks? You use cups again. Cups is both a server and a client. You can connect your Mac to a queue on another Mac running cups, provided you have network access. Cups on a Mac can connect to other kinds of print servers, for example, a Windows-based print server. There's bad news. Instead, I'll tell you about it.
All right. So connecting a printer such as a computer like a Mac to a printer, it kind of gives you two local queues, especially like on Windows. So if I get a help desk call, someone says, "Hey, my job is stuck." A lot of times I don't even see it on the actual print server. I have to go and remote in there, and something's happened, and I actually have to go in and either kill their job and start over again and try to fix it on their client machines. Of course, it's two queues on one local computer. Again, it can be confusing for the users.
It's not on quite one local. It's a queue on your client that then passes off to the queue on your server. So
it's almost like it's almost two queues of pass off, but it's confusing for them, and then you have to kind of look in two different places. It does make troubleshooting a little harder.
It's also just not great UI design because it's like they can see, like again in troubleshooting land, they can go in and say, "Oh, my printer left my queue. It must be fine." Or not my printer, my print job left the queue. It must be fine. Or it says it's printing and this is not getting anywhere.
Right.
If you don't turn debug on cups, for example, it'll send a network printer just out into nothing and say, "I print it." Like if you have the wrong IP in your config file, it'll just send it to nowhere and die.
Again, and on the Mac client, you have to make sure you have the appropriate drivers. And again, depending on the vendor of printer, there could be several different flavors of drivers that might work and might not work. Whereas though with a Windows printer, I have a Windows client that connects to the print server. It pulls down the drivers straight from the Windows server. So I really don't have that. We don't have that much of an issue on the Windows side, only really on the Mac side. So we're going to get into some Mac-based printing under an OD environment.
Okay, so we already have our OD server, which if you can switch me over to the OD server, Stan,
Already got this guy.
Control. So here's our OD server, which is running Open Directory, and the test client's already bound. And then it's actually ever since 10.6, they deprecated the print server, some of the print server services out of the server GUI. So you really do it just like you do on the client. That you add a printer. And 11 notes down?
10.967.1.11, yep.
Now I did that, and I want to make sure I got the right driver. It's using the generic. That's okay for our purposes right now. And then I can share this on the network by clicking the share and just making sure that printer sharing is on. This used to actually kind of have its own dedicated control panels in the server interface. How many folks work with server 10.6? And certain things have been deprecated regrettably, like it used to have a queuing system, or not a queuing, a quota system, and a few other niceties that regrettably Apple has kind of given up on, which we can talk about when we get kind of through a few more things. But now, we're going to, if you could switch me over to the client, Stan. So, we talked about paperback copies of Hamlet, so we got one. But here in this case, we're going to add, now we're on the client, and we can add the printer, and actually you can use, it says printers nearby, and I can do add printer on Mac server. And it's connected to it. And I'll print some of Hamlet.
What if that's not nearby?
What if it's not nearby? What you can do is you can then do plus, and you can do, this is goofy, I don't know how many folks have done this. If you sort of control click on customize toolbar, you can do client, or I mean you can do advanced, and then you can do I don't know how many folks have worked with this interface, but this is like the really kind of core interface of the. So, if it's not nearby, you can search it out, or you could attach to, you could do the IP address of the server. That partially answers your question.
Well, I think I've tried the server before and haven't been able to get it to work. And it's not nearby, I mean, because it's not on the on a Bonjour network, so that's why I kind of was wondering how to get it.
And I think you could probably put in the here, like in under IP, you could put in the server's IP address.
Yeah, and look for it.
And the queue.
And then what queue? The queue is the name of the...
Right. Or the host, if we're working in this sort of dummy network we've got here, so we don't have fully qualified domain names. But you would use fully qualified domain. So we're test printer at mycompany.com.
Yeah, mycompany.com or .edu or whatever.
Right. But for this point,
as he's doing us, kind of talk a little bit about Bonjour. I know some network admins don't like it because they call it a very chatty protocol. And we have the same issue as well, where we would like to use some features of Bonjour, but we're just not allowed to use it.
So what we'll do here, just to chime in on Stan here, we've added the printer, and we're going to do two-sided, so we'll do duplexing, and we're going to do a range, because I don't want to print all of Hamlet. 1 to 10.
You're going to print out 19.
Okay. So it's going to print, and it's connected to the print server. No, but how many folks have Bonjour, and how many folks have kind of had to sort of put it aside because their switch admins have gotten kind of unhappy about it? I'm sorry? No. Which is regrettable, and I wish we could find it. We might try to find this in the notes for you later. I mean, Bonjour is actually not a bad protocol. Cisco has written an extensive white paper, has blessed it. A lot of people's networks are Cisco-based, and Cisco has said, we're okay with it, but a lot of switch admins are kind of a little stodgy about that. Apologies to any stodgy switch admins in the room. So, and Hamlet is coming out, both sides, yay.
I'm actually cancel it.
Okay.
And
so what's next on the agenda?
So,
Because we have 41 minutes.
okay. All right, so what's next? Did that. All right, so.
I'll talk and Stan will drive here.
All right, so what we're going to do next is we're going to actually go more into like what our environment kind of looks like, which is a Mac OS X client connecting to a Windows print server. So I don't know, I'm going to kind of go in, I have a local Windows Server 2008 running on my Lenovo laptop, so I'm going to kind of go in, I'm just going to briefly show you guys how to do it. Hopefully some of you guys are learning something new. If not, I'll try to make it as quick as possible, but just show you a little bit of our environment. So,
well, okay, I want to take a little show of hands. How many folks here are in a heterogeneous environment? How many folks it's largely Windows back-ended? Okay. So how many folks is your print server a Windows print server? Okay, this is pretty big. Okay, so Stan has something useful to tell.
Here's another question. Can you guys actually touch your print server? Or does you have a system admin that does it? Okay, so I didn't see as many hands. I'm going to kind of do it the long way. So if you're in Server 2008, you go down here to Server Management Tools. Basically, this should be already added as a role. Can you guys see this?
All right. You can do.
Basically, it should be print and document services, and then print servers, whatever your printer's called, and then your actual printers. Oh.
I pulled my printer.
Yeah, it's redirecting. But basically, in a print queue for troubleshooting or adding a printer, I'm not going to add a printer. I mean, you right-click Add and go through setting up your IP address and your drivers, and that would be it. Once the printer's set up on your print server and it's in AD, that's pretty much it.
All right.
Oh. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to our test client, which I forgot to, and I'm going to bind it to local AD.
Now also we're going to unbind, it's currently bound to OD, which isn't really necessary for this. I mean, what we just showed you on how to print and connect from a Mac works either with OD or AD, or rather, if you just are connecting to the server, or you're connecting with Open Directory, the Apple Directory server, but you'll get Kerberos enabled. You'll basically get the ability to pass security through. You may not be prompted for a password at that point. It depends. A lot of that really depends on your environment. Now I'm going to warn everybody. Our servers both have 2 gigs of RAM, real high end. So
Can you do this without binding to Windows Active Directory?
You could, but then you have to kind of do a double authentication, and then sometimes permissions might not work as well. I've had issues where someone brings a laptop that's not on our domain, and they try to print to it, and it just doesn't work. A lot of times I actually have to set it up for IP printing.
What if you just had a Windows print server and you just said, guest access for printing?
No, not for us. We couldn't do that.
but it is. You're right.
It's possible, but for our situation, it wouldn't be able to work. For Windows Print Share, like say I'm in the office, they were in a work group, yeah, that could work.
All right, so I'll take over from here.
Yeah, that's how I actually print at home. I have a work group at home, and I have my MacBook, and it actually connects to that as a print server. Yep. Yes. Yeah. And also going back to the print server on the Windows server, when I have my security groups, I can actually block out. I don't want students printing to this printer. I don't want staff and that will take care of that as well.
So test 2 is an Active Directory user right now that I'm logging in as. Which this isn't going to be fast. Like I said, I'm warning about the...
The Windows printing from unbound machine. We have the Windows print server, and we have our students who bring their own Macs to the lab and they're not bound. And they can connect the Windows print servers, but when they authenticate with their net IDs or with their AD accounts, they have to give the domain when they're authenticating.
Yeah.
The bound machines don't have to give the domain.
Right. Right. Well, for us, it just doesn't work. I didn't set up our domain controller, so how they set it up, it just doesn't do it at all. For us, we use a third-party product called PaperCut that allows our students to go to WebPrint, and they'll print that way. And again, they still have to use their Goucher credentials to pass through, but that's how they would do it.
So I've just logged into using our test client, which is up here now. I've just logged into Active Directory. Have folks bound machines to Active Directory?
Yeah.
And then the process is pretty much the same again. Printer and scan. Yeah. I'm using root just because I'm lazy. You really shouldn't. I've said it. You add a printer or scanner, and then you'd use your advanced. It's going to run through all this searching for printers business, which we're going to... Actually, you can also find it locally. Or you can do... So here we'll do it locally. By going through the sort of the drip down, sort of the columned windows. So,
But going back to in the case that it doesn't see the printer, if you go to Advanced and actually set up through SMB and the full file path for the print server, it'll do it that way as well. Right. And that's how we have to set it up because it doesn't see our servers. We
have a lot of VLANs in the Goucher network, and I speak like it's still the network I work in, but I've only been out of the institution
a couple of months,
8 weeks or so.
Yeah.
But you can do it. Just you select.
You're going to go to Type, and then you can go down to Windows Print.
SMB, and then you can put in.
For some of the older, I know with 10.6, we actually had to download a KSMB plugin to actually work for authenticating. I don't know what happened with 10.6 and SMB, but they seem to fix it in Lion.
Remind me, IP of this server?
It's actually no, it's
No, I'm now putting in the IP address of the server.
210.67.1.4.
4. And what's the priority?
It's just print.
We'll just select generic for the moment.
Duplexer. Okay.
And now, back to things I really need to print. And it works just the same way. And again, it says it's hold for authentication. And that's where we can use something like Kerberos.
It's behind it. It's a pop. Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Yeah, but if you enable Kerberos, it'll get rid of this. Within cup. So we're going to show you that a little later on. But yeah, it's just a checkbox, and it'll help authenticate.
Correct.
Correct. Yes.
That is. I may have given the wrong password. What? We have extra.
Yes, which a lot of times we'll have issues with people with MacBooks that are bound. They come in, they just think I plug in, it works. Their ticket has expired, and they have to just log off, log back in to get a new ticket or restart. That usually takes care of it.
And of course,
You know what else works? If you enable a password for your screensaver, that will authenticate.
Yep.
And you can set if your users don't like having to do it every time. I think the max length is 4 hours.
Yeah.
You can set it for that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. But then you get,
I had to walk in with a laptop that was already open. And walk back into the domain.
right.
All right, Stan, why don't you open the password here? Because the best laid plans, you know, we tested this, and it's,
I'd like to mention too, you can also do LPD printing
right,
on a Windows server as well. You don't have to stick with SMB,
right.
and that's what we do.
Excellent. All right, I think we're going to try adding this cube one more time, and then we're going to move on. Under the,
Actually, let's just move on because there's some other, this is kind of basic. Let's get in some more,
let's get in.
some goodies.
Yeah.
So,
This does work. Oh, there it goes. And that, hold for authentication.
we'll come back to it with, as we go into cups. But you had a question?
What we ran into in the past was that when the user had changed for whatever reason their AD password, that broke printing if they were set up in this fashion, if the printer was set up in this fashion.
Yes, we run into that sometimes as well. A lot of times, killing the keychain helps with that. And that's how we usually fix it. When they change their password, a lot of times they don't update the keychain. We basically go in and either run a script to kill keychains for them, and they log off, log back in, or reboot, and that usually fixes it for them.
But if you say the password is on, right?
Right.
Right, that's the only caveat of that.
The thing we have found is a lot of, I mean, I don't know how many folks use like an independent password manager, like, you know, you go to some kind of website and it resets your domain password. And, you know, if everything's set up right, it's best to use the Mac GUI if you've got a dedicated Mac user to go to change password, and that will not kill your keychain. That will update your,
Right.
that will
Automatically update the password.
right.
But what I saw in the past is that and this didn't seem at the time to have been tied to the keychain, but when they had to authenticate to create that Windows queue on their Mac, when they changed their AD password, the connection between the Mac and that Windows printer broke. I didn't seem to think that at the time it was related to. So you're saying it was?
For our situation, it was.
We'll talk about troubleshooting some more. That could give you, the best thing to do would be sort of troubleshoot it and figure it out. But now, are you logging in, are they they're AD users logging into the systems with either mobile or network accounts? They're not local, okay. Yeah.
They're AD users, they are mobile accounts.
Right.
with Local homes.
Okay, yeah. Kerberos can fix some of that. I mean, I don't know if you've enabled Kerberized printing. I guess not. We'll talk about it. Okay, so printing is great, but it can be optimized. Your users will really want you to optimize it. There's a fine line between optimization and customization. For the purposes of optimization, for our purposes, is making things more efficient, leveraging features that are present but not enabled by default.
Like duplexing, or if you have some finishers that you want to enable, stapler, hole punchers and stuff, whatever you're printing to, maybe a copier or a printer.
And some of these features may not be available in the Aqua or the Finder environment. And we've talked a little bit about MDNS. So we're going to talk about it more later, but I think we've already kind of hit MDNS a little bit. Some common pain points that we want to address. Who's driving? You want to drive this one? Or...
You can do it.
Okay, we'll talk.
All right, so you saw how we kind of ran into that issue with authenticating. So Eric's going to go ahead and do a demo on enabling Kerberos and actually solving that issue. Also setting up duplexing.
Okay, what I'm going to do here is for our, let's get connected to that printer properly. I'll just delete it. Now, Kerberos authentication, regrettably, is something that can't really well be done in the Aqua GUI, which is kind of a shame, but... So I'm going to add the Windows printer. Just the way I have. This is nothing very new from what we've been talking about. And we can add the we'll add the duplexer. We'll talk about the duplexer in a second. So printer's now there. And we go to the web admin. And then you can go to printers, and on your individual printer, you can go to the printer tab. And on the individual printer, they added this in 10.7 and 10.8. You do go to set default options. And then here it'll show you these sort of sub options. And one of them is policies. And you can change your policy from default, which is what it is, to authenticated or Kerberos. So you set your default options. You'll need to put in an administrator password. So I used root, do as I say, not do as I do. And now what will happen is if you have a Kerberos ticket, you should be able to print without This is a biggish thing, and they're passed through without the need of a password. Are folks vaguely understand what Kerberos is? How many folks need a quick primer?
I think we're good.
Good, because unless you want to explain the ticket granting ticket.
No. Getting some more stuff about customizing printing.
We need to do the duplexer.
Getting a little ahead of myself. We'll do the duplexers next.
Okay, so this is something that's interesting, and this is where we're going to get a little bit into when we get into sort of our little hacking. But the issue is duplexing. How many folks in your environment is green important? How many folks have had your management say to you, I need every printer to duplex by default tomorrow? Well, yeah, but... But duplexing can be a little bit funny because you can do it just, on a programmatic way. Let's go back to Hamlet. I did it for you earlier today, which is you can just say, I want to print two-sided. I want to print from like 2 to 9. Interesting. Ask for password then. You know what? I printed. Here's I want you to touch it. I set up the Mac environment. He set up the Windows environment.
The bigger thing a lot of times is they want to duplex print, but they don't want to duplex print.
Well, there is an issue.
It's another issue.
But you can do it programmatically, but you can also you can do it on the CUPS admin, so that it does this by default. So what you do is you go to your printer, and this is something that can be a little bit confusing. You go again, and you set your default options, and every printer has a little bit of a different way of dealing with this. For example, this one says I have a duplexer, which that's acknowledging the presence of the duplexing apparatus. but then you have to go into general here and say, I want to, two-sided is off. So you want to say, I want to do flip standard, flip on long edge standard, and you set as a default option. And what this means is if you're working in like a lab environment, that means anyone who prints, that's just what it's going to do on its own. Yeah?
OS 10 has this thing that I've been reading through which drives me up the wall is when the users change these. OS 10 remembers the last change and it continues to print on. And my problem with our color printers is they turn the color on and all of a sudden they're printing 10 PowerPoint decks of 250 pages out in color when they should have been black and white. My question to you is there some way in cups that you can say go back to default?
Yes and no.
Well, yeah.
Yes. All right.
We will show you how we're getting there.
Yeah, we're getting there.
That's kind of the denouement of the whole thing.
Yeah, we had the same issue with our color printer in the lab. Students came in, yeah, we're getting there.
But that more falls into the realm of ethical hacking.
Well,
making cups do things it shouldn't do.
I mean, we're kind of running out of time.
Right.
Let's get to that. We're going to get to what you're saying. So I think this is it.
Yeah, this is customizing. We're going to show you something. This is something that we call, I mean, a nice thing about cups is cups can be, the reason we ran you through the cups files is so that we could show you how to manipulate them later. And there you can also leverage cups with other aspects of Mac OS X. For example, AppleScript Automator, LaunchD with Lingon if you feel like doing that. And you can use shell scripting. Now we're going to show you a little thing we came up with called Phoenix printing, which is,
basically what the Phoenix printing was.
Explain it. No, go look at it.
We create the printers, user uses it, whatever changes that they make, go right ahead. When they log off, cups gets blown away. When a new user comes on, cups gets added with the default settings. So it's like it's brand new each time for the user, so they can change whatever settings, preferences that they want. So say if I come in, I don't want to print black and white for my PowerPoints, I want color, I go ahead, the next user comes in, they print out something, it's not in colors in black and white because it rolls back to the defaults that we set previously. So Eric's going to show you a script that we kind of developed for us.
It's interesting in a lab environment, but most of my users have this on computers.
You could do that. There are different ways you could do that. We're showing you a very basic way to do this. Anything you can do that's like any kind of a management system, delivery system, you could deal with. I'm like, we've just set up the world. We're going to show you this, like the world's simplest management system we cooked up last night. But if you use Casper, if you use Absolute, if you use Puppet, you could do. There's a lot of different ways you could
do it. Yeah.
But here's the actual. What I have in here is on the server. I'm on the server now, and I have a shared out folder called Resources. And in here lives the actual script, and in the Phoenix folder is some of those files we talked about. These are my clean cups configs. They set up the way I want them set. And then what you do, and the script. I'm not going to jump through it line by line, but no, I don't want to install. I guess so. So we'll look at the script in a minute. I'll show you what it actually looks like in practice.
Open it up in a text edit then.
That's all right. Let's see what it is now. Where'd you go? So, almost done. So in the little bit of time we've wasted.
It's still installing.
So anyway, what we do here, and this is what we're going to provide in the take-homes, because I don't want to read all this off to you and you don't necessarily want to digest it. But basically what it does is it stops cups. We unload the launch daemon. Then we do what's the equivalent of a reset on cups in the GUI, which is we delete the config files. Then we copy over the configuration files from that Phoenix folder. Then we adjust our permissions. We reload the cups daemon. And then just for our convenience, we have a little Apple script that pops up and tells you I did something. And then we shut down the file share, just so that you disconnect from this. This all really if we hadn't had the Apple script pop up and say I did something, the user would never see it.
How long does that take to implement?
For the user?
They double click on something and then you take.
This just runs at login. This is set to run it.
Yeah. And our environment runs at login.
In seconds. It runs in seconds.
Yeah.
So I will actually get this implement. Now what we're doing here, because the reason we've thrown it on the server and not like on a local folder is so that if we have to change our config very quickly, we can do it on like a test client and then copy it up to the server. Because we've had that happen. We've had people move around printers, we get a new printer, a printer breaks, so we have to change things and you just upload it to the server once. And now I'm going to quickly show you how this should look. You have to do this. This is one of these things where you actually really do have to do it as root to get it going. So all I'm going to do is here I have in the shared folder. Now what I have here is I'm doing this is just my best practice. I'm doing a handoff script, which basically opens very quickly. It opens a connection to the file server and then launches the second script. And again, if you wanted, and this isn't so much for printing, but if you just wanted to hang a lot of different management and you don't want to do something like, if you don't want to get into the puppets and the Caspers and you can do a real simple management thing where you just connect a launch script to a remote script repository.
Right. And this is how, in our labs, again, this is how a lot of our print settings for our Macs are being, they're talking to a server and then in that login, they're doing whatever scripts we're telling it to do.
And then I'll just enable this in Linguon. So this is part of the launch D. Are folks familiar with the launch D apparatus? That's basically, it replaced cron. And it says your network, it's now ran, and it says your network printers are now configured. And if you look at printers, we didn't set these up. They just transplanted themselves. And yes, they do work. Now we could, yeah. There are occasionally, now I am gonna give a caveat here. This is a homegrown solution, and you need to we can give you the script, but you'll need to troubleshoot it because we were getting this going, was it in 10.6? And then really tried to get it implemented in 10.8, and we have, as you can see, there are a few little bugs here and there. But fundamentally, you saw what happened, which was, I'll reset the print system and run it again.
If you remove those cuts files, will those auto-populate with the defaults again if they're not available?
I believe if you run the cups, some of them will, some of them won't. You do need to replace them. And if you quit the print, it'll say, I did this. Again, that's more for our convenience. And you'll notice they're back. I had deleted them, and they programmatically return themselves. And I'll try it. That's how it works. That's how it's supposed to work. We were fighting with this last night. So as I say, you got to sort of troubleshoot. This is the kind of thing that happens. But it's a good idea. It sometimes doesn't work as well, and we can give you like a seed script, but I would say troubleshoot it for your environment. We can also, another way you can do is there are enterprise management tools out there, and that's actually where I'd point you if you've got some capital and you've got your management wants to put some capital into it. And remote desktop is okay, workgroup manager is deprecated, profile manager is new, some people like it, some people don't. SCCM has some of those things. Third-party tools like Absolute Manager Casper, some tools have specific abilities to print and others don't. Now we'll also talk about some alternatives, and I'll let Stan talk about this because he plays with PaperCut a lot.
Again, PaperCut is more like the user-end services as far as accounting. If in our environment we actually allot students a balance of like say 500 printer sheets, 300. That kind of keeps track of their printer transactions. Also for us, it kind of acts as logging for printers when people print, how much they print. And there's some other third-party tools that do the same thing. Maintenance windows we can disable from PaperCut. Also, we use it for our multifunctional devices as well. But going in a little bit of troubleshooting with the printer, client, service networks, kind of going real quick, only on 9 minutes left. Again, Mac OS X, you can look for GUI errors, look in the console logs, enabling, disabling cups, restarting cups, see if that fixes the issues for you. Windows Server, again, look at the errors, the GUI errors itself, logs, drivers, print queues, permissions, and of course for both systems, you can always restart. Networking, actually just make sure that the printer is actually connected to the network, has the proper IP address. If not, talk to your network admin or someone who can actually look at the switches.
Yeah, and something else I just want to mention is the reason that our little sort of cup script just didn't work, I just troubleshoot on the fly, I was running as root. It doesn't want to run as root, but if we switch over to our test client, we can, these are the transplanted printers, and it still requires a password unless we set up Kerberos, which Kerberos you can set up. Anything you can do in that config file with the cups web admin, you can do the export.
You can do the export.
And the reason we would want to do that is because you can do all the stuff from you can also do scripts like running LP admin and a lot of switches, but like I showed you with the duplexing, some things call it just duplexing. Some things call it duplexing and two-sided long edge. The PPDs are not consistent, and sometimes if you could just build a printer on a test box and then suck it up into your share, that's easier than say maybe sending yourself to grad school on Canon switches versus HP's switches. That's one of the places where cups shows some of its ugly sides, is that a lot of the switches and a lot of the config is really specific to vendor, and there's not a whole lot of control. Though Apple's taken over the drivers more, so that's becoming less of a problem.
All right.
But I'll let you talk about, sorry about that, Stan.
Well, that's pretty much it. I think we have a few more slides left. What else do we have?
We have a few more slides. We have the fun slides, and then we have some candy bars. 10 things that we love and hate about cups. So why don't you start with number 10, Stan?
All right. So we love cups because it works most of the time. there's a lot up there. It works most of the time. Yeah. We hate that Apple removed some of the server features for cups in 10.7. We love that we can hack up cups, do things that we wanted to do. We hate that the advanced features in cups are often inconsistent with each vendor, but that's how it happens in the environment. We also we love cups because it can interoperate with Windows servers. So,
well, and we hate that cups doesn't always deliver. Doesn't print. How many folks have worked with Windows print servers on Windows machines, and you've seen that the printer drivers just arrive with the printer? Regrettably, there's nothing quite so slick in cups to do that. We love that cups can be scripted. It can be messy, and you saw how the sausage was made just this afternoon. But it works in a way, and that's the thing. If you pound it out enough, you'll get something that'll work for you. We hate that cups uses the 2 print queue system. That drives us nuts because again, it just screws with the user a little bit. We hate that many network admins don't trust MDNS because that makes some of that easier. And the number one thing that we love or hate about cups, now let Stan tell us.
We love that Michael Sweet accomplished his goal of making a usable and consistent printing interface for Unix. So,
just a quick pitch. If you want to know a lot more about cups, Michael Sweet both wrote cups and he wrote the book on cups. Published in 2001. It's not printed anymore. You can get it used, but on the cups.org website, he's got the corrections. So where the newer versions of cups diverge from the book, he tells you what page and where to change things.
And
now, and here's a little bonus. Thanks to Display PostScript, you can print to PDF for free if you're looking for green. We talked about like the number of trees that Goucher College kills for fun. And if you'll just how many folks know how to print to PDF?
Everyone.
Okay, folks know that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but that's a great thing. That's something we try to encourage our users to do. If it's a green thing, if you can print it to PDF to access it later, that's great. And of course, we have one final quiz. Is what does the dog cow say? It says, who knows who knows this one? Who remembers the dog cow? Clarice. What? Clarice the dog cow. Yes. And as you identified her by name, which one do you want? Mr. Goodbar or Straight Hershey? Which one?
All right. Well, thanks again. Hopefully we're able to help you guys out with some things you might not know about printing or open up some dialogue for some other stuff about printing. And again, we're always open to learning new stuff about how other institutes, businesses are handling their printer situations. We figured out ways that work for us, but there's always a better way of doing things. So thanks again.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we have 3 minutes left, so any questions or comments? Yeah.
Where did you get that script that you had up earlier?
The Phoenix, we will put that up we'll give that to Rusty and we'll get it with our materials.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll have it a little more troubleshot by that point.
Yeah.